Hello Wargamers. Today I want to talk about the newly released Tau KX-139 Ta'unar Supremacy Armor from Forgeworld. So we saw pictures of this from the Forgeworld Open Day a while ago, and now it's finally up for pre-order. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the model itself, and then kind of go through the rules, because of course the experimental rules have been released for that as well. So all right, so here is the model. We've seen that before. It's gorgeous. It's huge. You can see here these are the pulse ordnance drivers systems. Here it also has the tri-axis ion cannons, and then there's another weapon, the fusion eradicator, that's not available for order yet, but we'll look at that in a minute here. But you can see with the pulse driver system, it has three barrels, just a ton of detail on it, and like all of the Forgeworld Titan type models, it comes compartmentalized, so you can either buy it as a whole kit with all the pieces that they have right now, or you can just buy the torso and then add on the back systems and the arm systems as they become available, or as you want to. But yeah, so this is what the model looks like in 3D, or with the turnaround, right? So tons of detail on the legs, tons of detail on the arms, and that's so that's something that I think is really a shame in terms of Forgeworld models, is they have tons of detail on them, but when you actually see the painting, a lot of those details are just kind of taken for granted. They're not necessarily highlighted in a really spectacular way, which is disappointing. But they're not necessarily there to pick out all the details and painting it. They're there to just make a model to sell it. So I guess that's that. Oh, and then the other thing I didn't mention, right, is these support systems here, which we'll get to in a minute. It's 250 pounds, which in US dollars is about $390. So it's quite expensive. But you are basically buying a Tau Titan. So what do you expect? But yeah, getting on to the rules here. So it's weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 4, strength 8, toughness 9, wounds 10, initiative 2, attacks 2, leadership 9, and a 2-up save for 600 points. So the stat line here is pretty predictable for it being a gargantuan creature. Yes, that's right, it's a gargantuan creature and not a super heavy walker like a lot of people had predicted. But it being a gargantuan creature makes sense, considering that all Tau suits have been infantry or monstrous creatures up until this point. So straying from that in the rules would be a little strange. And I actually like that it's a gargantuan creature, and I'll get to that, why that is, in a moment here. The war gear: 2 arm-mounted tri-axis ion cannons. So that's the three ion cannon arm things that we saw just a minute ago. The pulse ordnance multi-driver system is the thing on the back. The vigilance defense system is the combination of smart missile systems and burst cannons that are mounted on its chest. And then the barrier shield generator is basically what it has for shields, as opposed to the Riptide shield generator, or just normal shield generator that crisis suits have. Special rules, and here is where I start to see some issues with the rules. Gargantuan creature, and then it lists fear, fearless, hammer, wrath, unstoppable, move through cover, relentless, smash, and strike down as things inferred by gargantuan creature. Of course, it's missing feel no pain, which all gargantuan creatures have, and so that's an issue that needs to be resolved. But I would assume that yes, this has feel no pain as well, which is a nice part of it being a gargantuan creature as opposed to being a super heavy walker. Yeah, and it's able to be used as a Lord of War for Codex Tau Empire, which is suggesting that the new codex is indeed still going to be called Codex Tau Empire, seeing as that is very close indeed. I wouldn't expect them to release this necessarily so soon, so close to the release date, and have an error like that in there. So probably the new codex is still going to be called Codex Tau Empire. All right, options. The armor may exchange either of its tri-axis ion cannons for a fusion eradicator for free. And we'll see what that does when we get to it in a second. But yes, on to the actual war gear. The defense system comprises 2 smart missile systems and 2 twin-link burst cannons, which may be fired normally. In addition, these weapons can be used to make Overwatch attacks at BS2, contrary to the usual rules for gargantuan creatures. So that's cool. Basically, you can fire Overwatch with a gargantuan creature. Normally, you can't, and you can fire these as normal too, and at BS2 when doing Overwatch. So part of that is a little bit confusing, right? Because is the defense system all of those weapons, or is it each of those weapons individually? And what I mean by that is you can only fire Overwatch with 2 weapons since it's a gargantuan creature, right? So can you fire all of those smart missiles and all of those burst cannons, or can you only fire 1 smart missile system and 1 burst cannon? I would tend to think that you can only fire 2 of those 4 weapons, but I'm not sure. It would seem a little silly for them to have 4 weapons on there when you can only shoot 2, but then again, we're talking about a model that has 3 main weapons and then this defense system on top of it too, when it can only fire 2 weapons in a normal shooting phase anyway. So the number of weapons doesn't necessarily suggest how many you can fire. The argument for being able to fire all of them, of course, is that it's listed as a single piece of war gear. So there, I'm not sure how that would actually work. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But yeah, the shield generator has a 5-up invul save, but is increased to 4-up against shooting attacks. So that's pretty mediocre, but it's toughness 9 with 10 wounds and a 2-up save to begin with. So the shield generator being a 5-up in close combat is fine, and a 4-up against shooting attacks is actually pretty good. But when a model with this barrier shield, so when the Supremacy Armor gets struck by a D attack with a death blow result, which is D6 plus 1 wounds, that number of wounds is halved, but the shield stops working until your next turn. So basically, if you're facing a guy with multiple D weapons and he shoots you with a D weapon first and gets that death blow result, the next one is not going to be halved if you get another death blow result, because your next turn would be your next turn, so then it will just pop back up. So it's only really relevant for your enemy's turn, the shield going down part, that is. But yeah, so that's pretty amazing. Since it has 10 wounds, of course a death blow result would be pretty catastrophic, and if you can halve the number of wounds from a death blow result, that can save you a lot of hurt. But again, do you round up or down? I think you round down. In Dungeons and Dragons, you round down. So I would assume that you'd round down here as well. Just my philosophy, I guess. But yeah, let's get on to the super interesting part in the last couple minutes here, which is just the weapons. There's the Pulse Ordnance Multi-Driver, which has 2 firing modes, either Concentrated Bombardment, which is 72-inch range, Strength D, AP2, Ordnance 1, Massive Blast, or the pattern bombardment, which is either 12 inches to 120 inches, strength 8, AP3, apocalyptic barrage 3, pinning with no cover saves allowed, which I guess is just ignores cover. But yeah, so one thing interesting here, of course, is that it has a minimum range for the bombardment, and yeah, so that's your main back weapon right now. The concentrated bombardment, clearly meant to be taking on really tough targets like other super heavies, whereas the pattern bombardment can pretty much take out most other things, right? So you get a apocalyptic barrage 3 with no cover saves, strength 8 AP3. That's gonna really do some damage to any army, unless they're running all Terminators or something, right? That's really gonna clear out a portion of the board. And so it's a pretty versatile weapon to begin with. But then on top of that, you get the standard tri-axis ion cannon, which standard 60 inches, strength 7, AP3, heavy 6, or a coherent beam, again 60 inches, strength 9, AP2, heavy 3. So you increase the strength, reduce the AP for half the number of shots. And this seems like a pretty decent weapon. It's good for the range, certainly. It's better than the ion, like a normal ion cannon. But maybe not as good as a ion accelerator. At least in some ways. But personally, I think I would go with the Fusion Eradicator for at least one of the arms. Range 24 inches only, but strength 8, AP1, heavy 5 Melta. So heavy 5 at ballistic skill 4. Let's see, you're going to miss a third of them, so you're going to get, four hits. But if you put a couple marker lights on your target, then you're ignoring cover, hitting on 2s. That's really going to clear things out as well, and that's really what you want this guy for, right? Is clearing out the hard targets. And so the Fusion Eradicator can really assist with that, whereas maybe the tri-axis ion cannon isn't going to fit that niche as well. So I would take at least one Fusion Eradicator arm instead of 2 tri-axis ion cannons. And that would give you a little bit more flexibility there as well, especially if you're doing a vehicle-intensive opponent, if you're facing a vehicle-intensive opponent. Yeah, so yeah. The rules are pretty cool, of course. They don't have the 40K approved stamp yet, but they also don't have the experimental rules stamp either, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah, but what would I recommend? For 600 points, this guy is pretty beefy. He's going to take up, a third of your 1850 list, but he can really put out a lot of hurt. I think it would be an amazing centerpiece for any army, and definitely brings a lot to the table. But yeah, I don't know if you will ever see one on the tabletop, just because it is so expensive, and because realistically, 10 wounds, even though they're toughness 9, is not that many when you consider how many armies have access to D weapons right now. So if you go up against a Eldar opponent or a Knight army, this guy is not going to stand up as well as you might hope, but against any other army, it's going to be really good. So I like it. I would buy one if I had the money, but I don't, so I won't. But yeah, very cool stuff. Clearly not meant to be moving around. Deployed in the backfield. like I said, give it the Fusion Eradicator and the Pulse Ordnance Multi-Driver, maybe a Triaxis Ion Cannon if you want one, but other than that, not a lot of options here. Interestingly, they didn't include any type of drone option for this, which is a little weird. You would think that this huge gargantuan suit that they make would be just swarmed with drones for protection, of course, right? So maybe not offensive drones, but you'd think there'd be like a bunch of like point intercept drones or shield drones that just kind of swarm around this thing to intercept shots and make sure that it's able to carry out its duty. But alas, that's not an option here. In my mind, though, there will be drones swarming around this thing protecting it. But yeah, so there you go, guys. Oh, I forgot to show you. This is the Fusion Eradicator, presumably, right? So it has the 5 fusion guns like some of the hazard suits have, right? Is that tubular fusion weapon. And they haven't released this yet, but I would really like to see it in a more detailed image, hopefully sometime soon. But yeah, so that's the new battle suit. Pretty exciting. Yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. I know this was a pretty off-the-cuff first impressions video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about the rules in the comments below, and of course, stay tuned for continued coverage of the upcoming Tau release in October. So, happy wargaming.